Chapter 7, Part 1 of The Voyage of the Beagle by Charles Darwin. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Voyage of the Beagle by Charles Darwin. Chapter 7, Buenos Ayres and Santa Fe. Excursion to Santa Fe. Thistle beds. Habits of the Vizcacha. Little Owl, Saline Streams, Level Plain, Mastodon, Santa Fe, Change in Landscape, Geology, Tooth of Extinct Horse, Relation of the Fossil and Recent Quadrupeds of North and South America, Effects of a Great Drought, Piranha, Habits of the Jaguar, Scissorbeak, Kingfisher, Parrot and Scissortail, Revolution, Buenos Ayres State of Government. September 27th. In the evening I set out on an excursion to Santa Fe, which is situated nearly 300 English miles from Buenos Ayres, on the banks of the Parana. The roads in the neighborhood of the city after the rainy weather were extraordinarily bad. I should never have thought it possible for a bullock wagon to have crawled along as it was. They scarcely went at the rate of a mile an hour, and a man was kept ahead to survey the best line for making the attempt. The bullocks were terribly jaded. It is a great mistake to suppose that with improved roads and an accelerated rate of traveling, the sufferings of the animals increase in the same proportion. We passed a train of wagons and a group of beasts on their road to Mendoza. The distance is about 580 geographical miles, and the journey is generally performed in 50 days. These wagons are very long, narrow, and thatched with reeds. They have only 2 wheels, the diameter of which in some cases is as much as 10 feet. Each is drawn by 6 bullocks, which are urged on by a goad at least 20 feet long. This is suspended from within the roof. For the wheel bullocks a smaller one is kept, and for the intermediate pair a point projects at right angles from the middle of the long one. The whole apparatus looked like some implement of war. September 28th. We passed the small town of Luxan, where there is a wooden bridge over the river, a most unusual convenience in this country. We passed also Areco. The plains appeared level, but were not so, in fact, for in various places the horizon was distant. The estancias are here wide apart, for there is little good pasture, owing to the land being covered by beds either of an acrid clover or of the great thistle. The latter, well known from the animated description given by Sir F. Head, were at this time of the year 2/3 grown. In some parts they were as high as the horse's back, but in others they had not yet sprung up, and the ground was bare and dusty as on a turnpike road. The clumps were of the most brilliant green, and they made a pleasing miniature likeness of broken forest land. When the thistles are full grown, the great beds are impenetrable, except by a few tracks as intricate as those in a labyrinth. These are only known to the robbers, who at this season inhabit them, and sally forth at night to rob and cut throats with impunity. Upon asking at a house whether robbers were numerous, I was answered, "The thistles are not up yet," the meaning of which reply was not at first very obvious. There is little interest in passing over these tracts, for they are inhabited by few animals or birds, excepting the Vizcacha and its friend the little owl. The Vizcacha is well known to form a prominent feature in the zoology of the Pampas. Footnote: the Vizcacha, Legostomus trichodactylus, somewhat resembles a large rabbit, but with bigger gnawing teeth and a long tail. It has, however, only 3 toes behind, like the agouti. During the last 3 or 4 years, the skins of these animals have been sent to England for the sake of the fur. It is found as far south as the Rio Negro, in latitude 41 degrees, but not beyond. It cannot, like the agouti, subsist on the gravelly and desert plains of Patagonia, but prefers a clayey or sandy soil, which produces a different and more abundant vegetation. Near Mendoza, at the foot of the Cordillera, it occurs in close neighborhood with the allied alpine species. It is a very curious circumstance in its geographical distribution, that it has never been seen, fortunately for the inhabitants of the Banda Oriental, to the eastward of the river Uruguay. Yet in this province there are plains which appear admirably adapted to its habits. The Uruguay has formed an insuperable obstacle to its migration, although the broader barrier of the Parana has been passed, and the Vizcacha is common in Entre Rios, the province between these 2 great rivers. Near Buenos Ayres these animals are exceedingly common. Their most favorite resort appears to be those parts of the plain which during 1/2 of the year are covered with giant thistles, to the exclusion of other plants. The Gauchos affirm that it lives on roots, which, from the great strength of its gnawing teeth, and the kind of places frequented by it, seems probable. In the evening, the Vizcachas come out in numbers, and quietly sit at the mouths of their burrows on their haunches. At such times they are very tame, and a man on horseback passing by seems only to present an object for their grave contemplation. They run very awkwardly, and when running out of danger, from their elevated tails and short front legs, much resemble great rats. Their flesh, when cooked, is very white and good, but it is seldom used. The Vizcacha has one singular habit, namely, dragging every hard object to the mouth of its burrow. Around each group of holes, many bones of cattle, stones, thistle stalks, hard lumps of earth, dry dung, etc., are collected into an irregular heap, which frequently amounts to as much as a wheelbarrow could contain. I was credibly informed that a gentleman, when riding on a dark night, dropped his watch. He returned in the morning, and by searching the neighbourhood of every Vizcacha hole on the line of the road, as he expected, he soon found it. This habit of picking up whatever may be lying on the ground anywhere near its habitation must cost much trouble. For what purpose it is done, I am quite unable to form even the most remote conjecture. It cannot be for defence, because the rubbish is chiefly placed above the mouth of the burrow, which enters the ground at a very small inclination. No doubt there must exist some good reason, but the inhabitants of the country are quite ignorant of it. The only fact which I know analogous to it is the habit of that extraordinary Australian bird, the Calodera maculata, which makes an elegant vaulted passage of twigs for playing in, and which collects near the spot land and sea shells, bones, and the feathers of birds, especially bright-coloured ones. Mr. Gould, who has described these facts, informs me that the natives, when they lose any hard object, search the playing passages, and he has known a tobacco pipe thus recovered. The little owl, Athene cunicularia, which has been so often mentioned, on the plains of Buenos Ayres exclusively inhabits the holes of the Vizcacha, but in Banda Oriental it is its own workman. During the open day, but more especially in the evening, these birds may be seen in every direction, standing frequently by pairs on the hillock near their burrows. If disturbed, they either enter the hole, or, uttering a shrill, harsh cry, move with a remarkable undulatory flight to a short distance, and then turning round, steadily gaze at their pursuer. Occasionally in the evening they may be heard hooting. I found in the stomachs of two which I opened the remains of mice, and one day saw a small snake killed and carried away. It is said that snakes are their common prey during the daytime. I may mention here, as showing on what various kinds of food owls subsist, that a species killed among the islets of the Chonos archipelago had its stomach full of good-sized crabs. In India there is a fishing genus of owls, which likewise catches crabs. In the evening we crossed the Rio Arrecife on a simple raft made of barrels lashed together, and slept at the post-house on the other side. I this day paid horse hire for 31 leagues, and although the sun was glaring hot, I was but little fatigued. When Captain Head talks of riding 50 leagues a day, I do not imagine the distance is equal to 150 English miles. At all events, the 31 leagues was only 76 miles in a straight line, and in an open country I should think 4 additional miles for turnings would be a sufficient allowance. 29th and 30th. We continue to ride over plains of the same character. At San Nicolas I first saw the noble river of the Parana. At the foot of the cliff on which the town stands, some large vessels were at anchor. Before arriving at Rosario, we crossed the Saladillo, a stream of fine, clear running water, but too saline to drink. Rosario is a large town built on a dead level plain, which forms a cliff about 60 feet high over the Parana. The river here is very broad, with many islands, which are low and wooded, as is also the opposite shore. The view would resemble that of a large lake, if it were not for the linear-shaped islets, which alone give the idea of running water. The cliffs are the most picturesque part. Sometimes they are absolutely perpendicular and of a red colour, at other times in large broken masses, covered with cacti and mimosa trees. The real grandeur, however, of an immense river like this, is derived from reflecting how important a means of communication and commerce it forms between one nation and another, to what a distance it travels, and from how vast a territory it drains the great body of fresh water which flows past your feet. For many leagues north and south of San Nicolas and Rosario, the country is really level. Scarcely anything which travellers have written about its extreme flatness can be considered as exaggeration. Yet I could never find a spot where, by slowly turning round, objects were not seen at greater distances